Welcome back to another episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More. My name's Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to report it to your local police and sheriff department. Disclaimer: this video is not recommended for persons under the age of 18 years old. It will also contain graphic details. If you do not feel comfortable, please click off now.
Heads up, this one is going to contain lots of information and may be confusing at times. We are going to be doing a deep dive into the Murdaugh family today. This case is going to involve multiple sections, including a deadly boat accident, double homicide, failed hitman for hire, fraud, etc. The Murdaugh family is a prominent legal family with generational wealth in the low country of South Carolina.
Alec Murdaugh is the father of the family. Since the 1920s, one of the family members has held the title of solicitor, which is equivalent to district attorney. Alec's full name is Richard Alexander Murdaugh. In 1990, he graduated from the University of South Carolina with a political science degree and Juris Doctorate degree. 4 years post-graduation, he became known to represent people in personal injury law. One of his areas that he did specialize in was wrongful death lawsuits. On top of that, he worked part-time in the solicitor's office at the 14th Judicial Circuit. He met his wife Maggie in college. They had 2 sons, Buster, who was born in 1996, and Paul, who was born in 1999. Paul and Buster were well known throughout the town. They spent their free time hunting, fishing, and they owned a property with 1,700 acres. Due to their wealth and connections, they lived a very much privileged life.
Like most white people with money. Multiple times, Paul got away with underage drinking, and his parents even encouraged it by purchasing him alcohol. February 23rd, 2019, Paul borrowed his father's 17-foot boat to go on a little boating trip with his friends. There were 3 couples on this trip: Paul and his girlfriend Morgan, Miley and her boyfriend Connor, and Anthony and his girlfriend Mallory. Paul, who was 19 at the time, stole his brother's ID and went to Parker's gas station to buy alcohol. The group wanted to take the boat to a friend's oyster roast, chill a couple hours, and then go back to the family's river house, which was not their hunting house. At the oyster roast, Paul, who was clearly intoxicated and was told not to drive the boat back, didn't listen in this case. It was a very foggy night and the boat didn't have great visibility and the lights were broken. But Paul, of course, didn't give a flying fuck, and he was going to drive that boat back. And in fact, he wanted to drink even more before they left.
Connor decided to join Paul at a bar called Luther's to do shots. They left the bar around 12:55 a.m. to go back on the boat. Paul was clearly over intoxicated, and unfortunately, he isn't a very pleasant drunk to be around. Paul has a drunk alter ego named Timmy. Timmy was very aggressive. He would strip off his clothes. His friends state Paul's behavior was reckless and unsafe. For example, he drove the boat in circles. The girls on the boat felt unsafe and they begged him to stop, but he refused. Paul left the wheel unattended, which is not recommended. He screamed at his girlfriend. One of his friends stated that he approached his girlfriend, spat on her, and called her a bitch. Apparently, this was normal behavior for him. Connor did make multiple attempts to gain control of the wheel when Paul walked away. However, he was unsuccessful. Mallory asked Paul to take her home because she felt unsafe. He said no. Approximately 2:20 a.m., he sped the boat through a narrow waterway known as Archer's Creek. At around 33 miles per hour, Paul hit one of the pillars of the bridge. Mallory Beach was sitting on her boyfriend's lap when she was ejected off the boat.
After collecting themselves, the group realized that Mallory was missing. Anthony, who was Mallory's boyfriend at the time, panicked. Supposedly, Paul fell in, but that part we cannot fully confirm or deny. At 2:20 a.m., Connor called 911. EMS arrived at the crash scene, but Mallory was nowhere to be seen. Paul was clearly the responsible one for the crash and was intoxicated, and he was also underage. Authorities still were not focused on him as the main suspect, though. Officers found his phone in nearby bushes, and they handed it back to him, when they could have kept it as evidence. 3 officers that responded to the crash did know Alex Murdaugh. The group of 5 are sent to the hospital. Paul was given a blood test to determine his blood alcohol content, which was 3 times over the limit, and this was roughly 4 hours after the incident occurred. Authorities did have a lot of questioning in regards to who was driving the boat, and Connor's name was brought up multiple times. We previously mentioned that he attempted to gain access to the wheel whenever Paul walked away, but he was unsuccessful.
Connor did lawyer up and stated he was being framed for the crash. Mallory's friends and family were shocked that she was gone. March 3, 2019, Kenny Campbell from the search and rescue team discovered Mallory's body. She was found 5 miles away from the crash site. Mallory's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the bar and gas station who both sold alcohol to Paul. He was only 19 at the time. On top of it, the lawsuit was also filed against Alec and Maggie. They both encouraged Paul to drink underage. Paul was charged for the cause of Mallory's death due to driving the boat under the influence on April 18, 2019. Paul was privileged. For example, he was never handcuffed in court. He didn't have a formal mugshot at the police station. May 6, 2019, Paul was brought back to court and pleaded not guilty. June 4, 2021, Paul and the Beach family had an unsuccessful mediation. Because of this, they would have to go to trial, but that never happened.
Which is crazy, because if it was anyone who wasn't privileged or even a person of color, they would have been sentenced to life in prison, probably. Just goes to show white people's money are very privileged, and it's fucking ridiculous. But on to what eventually happened to Paul and Maggie. June 7th, 2021, 10:07 p.m., Alec called authorities to report that both Paul and Maggie had been shot. They were found lying unconscious next to dog kennels on their hunting property. Medical examiners estimated that both of them had died between 9 to 9:30 p.m. that night. Paul was killed with a shotgun, and Maggie was killed with a rifle. Officers seized guns from their home. They also discovered that at least one of the guns used in the double homicide had belonged to the Murdaughs. South Carolina law enforcement decision, aka SLED, took over the case. A day after the incident, SLED stated there was no danger to the public in response to the double homicide. This led people to believe either the police knew who the killer was or the family had been intentionally targeted. A theory at the time was that this was a revenge killing for Mallory Beach's death. Investigators said the whole party provided alibis and cooperated fully. Another theory was that this was a revenge killing because of the death of Stephen Smith.
So let's talk about Stephen Smith. Stephen Smith was a teen who resided in Southampton. July 8, 2015, his remains were found 6 miles from his house. His car was found with the gas cap open. He probably ran out of gas. Many people believe Stephen was the target because he was gay. After his autopsy results came back, it was ruled as a hit-run incident, but there was no broken glass or car parts, which led many to believe it was actually not a hit-run accident. There was a rumor that one of the Murdaugh's sons was responsible for his death, specifically Buster. We cannot confirm or deny if that rumor is true or not, and to what extent. One of Alec's brothers, who is a lawyer, called Stephen's dad. He offered to help him with the case for free of charge. Unfortunately, the case went cold until, upon investigating Paul and Maggie's death, police decided to reopen Stephen's case. They said that they may have possibly found ties between Stephen's case and Paul and Maggie's death.
June 25th, 2021, Alec posted a $100,000 reward to the public for any valuable information in regards to Maggie's and Paul's deaths. What's odd is the reward had a deadline for September that year, and during this time, Alec never spoke to the public. Solicitor Duffy Stone decided to step away from the case. Some people believe because he was supposed to be the prosecutor for this case, he left because at the time he had found evidence against Alec. Once again, we cannot confirm that was the reason why he left the case. September 4th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh was heading to Charleston when he was shot in the back of the head. The wound was not life-threatening, it just barely grazed his head. Alec called 911 and stated that he had a flat tire, was stopped, and someone stopped to help him. Then he says when he turned his back, they shot him. When Hampton County Police heard this, they thought their family had been targeted. But quickly, that theory was debunked. Alec's PR team's story didn't make any sense. For example, they stated that Alec had to spend some time in the ICU due to the gunshot wound and he temporarily lost vision. 2 days later, he was released. Alec resigned from his law firm.
Alec stated that he was struggling from addiction and the murders of his family had him upset. He said he was going to rehab to get some help. The actual reason he resigned was because his law firm had found a suspicious check on his desk. So his law firm, PMPD, decided to open an investigation into Alec. Alec misused company funds and stole money from clients. Here are the words from his firm. He is no longer associated with PMPED in any manner. His resignation came after the discovery with PMPED that Alec misappropriated funds in violation of PMPED standards and policies, end quote. His license to practice law was suspended. 10 days later, 61-year-old Curtis Edward Smith was arrested. September 14, 2021, Alec admitted the shooting incident was attempted so his son Buster could get a $10 million insurance payout. According to Alec, Curtis supplied him with drugs to fuel his drug addiction and helped him stage the suicide. Curtis's story is different. He blamed Alec for setting him up. He said he was asked to meet with Alec, and when he arrived, Alec asked him to help him commit suicide. Curtis declined. Alec aimed the gun to himself. He says he attempted to take the gun away from Alec, and it went off.
September 16, 2021, Alec turned himself in. He was then charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. He was granted a bond and told to report to rehab. The day before he turned himself in, September 15, 2021, Alec was sued by sons of their former housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield. February 2nd, 2018, Gloria was found unconscious at the bottom of the stairs in their hunting property. Maggie found her and reported it to 911. She had fallen down the stairs and was bleeding heavily. February 26, 2018, she passed away. What's strange is Alec told Gloria's sons they should get a lawyer and sue him for a wrongful death suit. Alec wanted them to sue him for $505,000 and his insurance would pay for it. The boys followed through, which was a big mistake on their part. Corey Fleming was hired, which was Alec's former law school roommate. The sons never saw any of the money. The money was instead funneled through a fake company called Forge that was actually Alex's bank account. Alec received $405,000.
Alec still remains to face multiple lawsuits from former clients. October 14, 2021, he was arrested in Florida upon release from rehab. Authorities charged him with 2 felony counts of obtaining property by false pretenses. This happened after completing the full investigation of the $4.3 million settlement that happened in secret with the Satterfield boys. October 19, 2021, he was denied a bond and forced to undergo psychiatric evaluation. The list of charges goes on and on. February 1st, 2023, an unseen video from Paul's phone comes to light. Witnesses state the voices belonged to Paul, Maggie, and Alec. During his trial, he was asked to describe the scene. Alec broke down multiple times and was unable to do so. March 2nd, 2023, Alec is found guilty for the murders of Paul and Maggie. He is convicted of 2 counts of possession of a weapon during a violent crime. March 3rd, 2023, Alec is charged with 2 consecutive life sentences for the killings.
As he should.
He's got a lot of charges.
Yeah, well, that's his own fault. He
Yeah.
was stupid. Like, this is what happens when you try to get your way around things that you illegally did. But into our favorite, which is Reddit comments. The first Reddit post is going to be South Nag's Head. Alec Murdaugh sentenced to life for the murders of his wife and son. Faith _ transcribed this. It's a tragic example of the current limitations of AI being able to accurately predict and prevent such terrible behavior in action. AI implementation still face ethical and moral boundaries that remain to be surmounted before such a tragedy can be avoided.
Inevitable ad 7905. I'm just spitballing a theory out there. What is Paul killed his mom over the truth regarding the housekeeper's death, whom he was so fond of then, and then Alex killed his Paul. It could explain 2 different guns used and the height difference and gives a motive. I haven't read up upon the evidence and theories. This is just from the little bit of info I know.
Bolo HKs. What happened to Murdaugh's glasses the night of the murders? Were they tested too? It was dark. Wondering if he would have needed his glasses to shoot. Did he clean those off too? Very good point.
Very good.
Unless they were reading glasses. Then maybe not.
Cecilia 999. You said, what a tangle web we weave. What do you mean by that, Judge Newman? When I lied, I continue to lie, Alex Murdaugh. My question to you is, when will it end, Judge Newman? The scream I scrumped.
I scrumped. Just use that name. Alec Murdaugh is quite fortunate. The opiate addict who will never experience homelessness. Very true.
Very true. New Dude Runner says, live by the lie, die by the lie. The man did not once said my family's killer is still out there, not once. So true.
Nino says 321. I really hope someone can answer this. During closed arguments, Water said AM lied on the stand in front of the jury. At sentencing, the judge said the same thing. That really struck me. What lies are they talking about? I mean, obviously if he killed them, he lied on the stand about that. He said he would never do it and was being vague about what he did around 9 p.m. If he did kill them, that's obviously a lie. But did he lie about other stuff too while on the stand? I'm just curious because I watched the whole trial, but I can't remember. It's possible he lied about a lot of other things.
Very possible.
Yeah, I mean, he was already being charged with fraud and all this other stuff, so he probably lied about everything his whole life. Let's be real.
12 Days Late says, I'm thinking of the families of Mallory Beach, Stephen Smith, and Gloria Satterfield. Those families deserve justice. They may never receive it. Mallory sure won't, but I hope it brings them a tiny bit of peace.
Yeah, that's so sad.
It is very sad.
Next Flip says, how was it addressed that AM did not test positive for gunshot residue? Also, I wonder why AM didn't switch gears and say he owed money to drug dealers and they committed the murders. Maybe he wasn't smart enough to think about that, let's be real. But also, I don't think they would believe that either. Necessary Weather 589. Are audits not mandatory for law companies in the US? If PMPD had been audited properly, it would have never come this far. I don't think they're technically required to do audits as often. I think it's every 5 years or so.
Yeah, and a lot can happen in 5 years.
A lot can happen in 5 years.
Clearly,
you can get away with a lot of stuff.
Clearly in there. Appropriate top 9080 says, does anyone think Buster will be interviewed or even indicted in the Stephen Smith's case?
Probably not. Let's be real. They probably won't find any evidence against him.
Strangled in Moonlight says, no, they found something during the Murdaugh investigation and they've said it's leading more towards drug issues, which would lean toward Alex and not Buster. That is, yeah, true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
QS Lexi Lou Who, Alex Murdaugh apologized to victim sentenced to 27 years for financial drug crimes. Silver-breadfruit 284, sorry, don't whitewash the chickens. Old family expression.
What does that even mean? Don't whitewash the chickens. Gloss over, basically.
Independent-Canary 95. Malignant narcissist, dark triad. He is nothing more than a predator. His victims were prey. He cares for no one but himself. He is incapable of feeling remorse because he has no conscience. Death and destruction surround him. A very dangerous man.
Local inactivist says, oh, he's been clean for 812 days, considering what Oxy cost in prison. That's only moderately surprising. Yeah, Oxy's very, cheap and accessible in prison, so I'm surprised too.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Koi9 says, crime doesn't pay unless it's white collar, then sometimes the risk is worth the reward. Rob a bank with a gun for a couple $100 and get 25 years, steal millions and get slapped on the wrist. Sadly, if Alec hadn't murdered his wife and son, he'd probably be out of prison on these financials in less than 10 years. 27 years is a good start on top of other sentences, considering Becky Hill might have fucked that up, an insurance blanket for someone besides Alec's own grade. So true.
Yep. Holly-Tano says, please, I've never heard any apologies so fake in my life. He managed to take people again with 40 minutes of self-aggrandizement. The people that he's going to help in prison better watch their backs and their pockets. He ain't gonna help nobody. What you mean?
No.
It's all by himself.
Mudfish2657, that narcissist sociopath would never hurt himself.
Probably not. Cornu Bergerin. Does anyone remember what he did to his friend JJ Jinx? I was kind of surprised that he had a black friend. I pegged him as a racist. His speech, oh man, I thought he would never stop and would have to be dragged out. He does have a good poker face, or I'm really bad at reading body language, but only detected a hint of anger when Judge Newman told him that he just saw nothing when he looked at him. A final slap telling him he did not believe a single word. That was nice. He had a black friend? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Aww.
On to the last Reddit post. This is by South Nag's Head. True crime design. Why did Alec Murdaugh kill his wife and son?
Oh.
And then they
Sally.
also have a link to a video which we'll post as well.
Sally Nutt says, I think he planned to only kill Paul, but Maggie saw it and got killed too. Very possible.
Delete says, had to be a combination of things. Mostly money. If he kills Paul, the lawsuit goes away. Talking about Mallory Beach. I'm sure they both had big life insurance policies that would pay out Alec. Added to the fact he's a narcissist psychopath with a huge opioid addiction. You've got a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Okay, in Maine, Alec found out earlier in the day that his financial crimes had been discovered by his firm. The firm's clients were Alex's bank account. He knew he would not be able to steal millions again and had Paul's boat death trial coming up, along with Maggie potentially filing for divorce. He had to get rid of them both because he was afraid financially. That would track. I would get that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I don't think it was something he premeditated too much. I feel like it was probably the day of.
Yeah.
He thought about it.
Emilio_Estevez, murder-suicide that he chickened out on, tried to finish the roadside chicken out again.
Escala 4965, just curious, does anyone know if AM's father died knowing about the murders? It was only a few days after, or did they spare him? Oh, look, says he knew they had a strategy meeting he attended, and then the dad passed later that evening. That's fucked up. Wonder if he peacefully passed away, or if it was an intentional pass away, or what?
Right. 22141. His life was crushing down on himself. Psychopathic traits very high on him. Throw others down. Collect insurance that it went badly. Okay, I'll take myself out. Then Buster can pass on the legacy instead. Arrested, held without bond, being held accountable. Game over. Yep. 12 dogs for me. I wonder if he's thinking a hunting accident may have worked better.
Damn. Oh, accomplished heir 697. I think Maggie and Paul found his pills and took them. Alec went to the kennels to retrieve them. It didn't end well. Hopefully they can RIP now. But that doesn't explain how they were shot. I mean, that could have happened, but also, I don't believe it.
I think it was money related.
I think so too. Well, and he also had an addiction. He didn't want to be caught for that.
Charge it 256. I think the housekeeper had a medical incident and fell. Even Paul's friend said he loved Gloria like a mother. No murder here. I could see if Buster and Steven had a thing and Am got wind and Am got rid of Steven.
That could have happened too.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, he could have been targeting. Whether it was related to the Murdaughs, we don't know. Could be.
Either way, it's probably more likely a hate crime.
Yeah.
Which is sad to think about.
It is. Bella Athens, just as a local sheriff summarized in the YouTube video, I don't think the murders were premeditated. We know Alec was under tremendous pressure as everything was collapsing around him. That night he may have been under the influence of the opioids he was addicted to, and something may have happened said between him and Paul at the dog kennels that caused him to lose control of himself.
Oh, maybe.
Possibly.
We don't exactly know what happened because he won't tell us. Still denies it that he ever did it, but you do you, boo, it's fine. The murder. Live Abuse Free on YouTube has a compelling take on this. I'm way too high to summarize right now, but she took me from confused and baffled through a play-by-play on psychology of someone who would be guilty of all that. Highly recommend. I mean, psychology gets a little crazy to get into when you get into the mind of somebody who is guilty of all that. But also, there's some people who are very professional and can outsmart like psychiatrists and all that stuff. So,
and he did specialize in wrongful death lawsuits. So
yeah, so he saw and knows a lot of shit. Yeah, like I said, a lot of people know how to pass psychiatrists. So
yeah, and he also knew a lot of enforcement, so he had that advantage.
He did.
Mindless Parsley 1446 makes me wonder why he spared Buster, especially given the fact that Buster may have been involved in the murder of Stephen Smith. I think he killed Maggie and Paul for all the reasons others have stated in the comments. And Legitimate Peace 3820 says he had no reason to do so. He probably wanted to leave one to carry on the family name.
Confetti has a very interesting theory, which I kind of agree with it a little, which is that this could have been a family annihilator type of situation, which is, for all intents and purposes, they were loving husbands, good fathers, only holding down high-profile jobs and seen publicly as being very successful. In these cases, the family has become firmly linked in the mind of the killer to the economy. However, if the father becomes an economic failure, he sees the family as no longer serving this function, which means he kills them all.
Yeah, I like that theory.
I do, which I've seen different cases of family annihilators, and it's crazy to think about that.
I could see that. The Murdaughs lived a very privileged life and got away with crimes for such a long time. It is honestly insane. Mallory Beach never got to see 20 years old because of someone's stupid decision to drink. The Satterfield boys had to go through hell to get money they deserved. Despite all this, Alec is finally getting what he so deserved, is to be in prison. But it is a reminder that money and power in the wrong hands is very dangerous.
So, once again, thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open. You never know when someone's going to sue you and then take your money.